What if Michael Jordan's greatest battle wasn't on the court, but in the shadows of Chicago's mean streets, where a kid's desperate plea drags him back to a past he swore he'd buried? One legend, one missing boy, and a city ready to explode. Every step's a gamble, every secret's a loaded gun. Hang on tight, because this isn't a game, it's a fight for redemption, and the clock's ticking. Hey, welcome to Epic Stories, your front row seat to tales that punch hard and stick with you like a clutch shot at the buzzer. If you're here for grit, heart, and twists that'll have you yelling at the screen, smash that like button, subscribe, and holler your city in the comments. Let's roll. Chicago's calling. The Chicago wind cut like a blade through the south side, rattling the chain-link fences and whipping trash across the cracked pavement. It was late, past midnight, and the streetlights flickered, casting long shadows over a neighborhood that hadn't seen good days in decades. Michael Jordan sat in his black SUV, parked in the alley behind a boarded-up bodega, the engine off, the windows cracked just enough to hear the city breathe. At 62, he wasn't the high-flying MJ anymore. His knees creaked, his hairline had retreated, but those eyes, sharp and unyielding, still burned with the fire that had stared down 1,000 defenses. He wasn't supposed to be here. These days, he kept to himself. Golf courses in Florida, quiet dinners with his kids, the occasional ESPN cameo. Chicago was a memory, a trophy case of triumphs and ghosts he'd left behind. But tonight, he'd driven 8 hours straight from Charlotte, fueled by a single text that hit his phone 3 days ago from an unknown number. MJ, it's Jamal. They're after me. Help. 47th and Loomis. No follow-up, no explanation. Just a name and a plea that wouldn't let him sleep. Jamal. Michael remembered him. A skinny 14-year-old with a chipped tooth and a faded Bulls jersey, always hanging around the youth clinics Michael used to run in the 90s. The kid had idolized him, called him Mr. J, once asked for a signed ball with eyes so wide Michael couldn't say no. Last he'd heard, Jamal was still in the city, hustling odd jobs, staying out of trouble. Or so he'd thought. Michael had tried calling back. Nothing. Tracked the number. Burner. Dead end. So here he was, back in the streets he'd sworn off, chasing a hunch and a kid who might already be gone. He adjusted the collar of his leather jacket. Plain, no logos, nothing flashy, and pulled a knit cap over his head. The South Side wasn't a place for Air Jordan gear or a famous face. Not at this hour. He stepped out, boots hitting the asphalt, and locked the SUV with a soft beep. The alley smelled of damp concrete and something sour, maybe spilled beer from the dumpster nearby. He moved toward 47th Street, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning every shadow. The corner of 47th and Loomis was a war zone of neglect. Graffiti-smeared walls, a burned-out car husk, a flickering neon sign for a liquor store that hadn't closed since Reagan was president. A group of guys in hoodies lounged on the stoop, passing a blunt, their laughter sharp against the night. Michael kept his head low, but he felt their stares, the way a predator clocks prey. He wasn't scared. Not yet. But he knew this game. One wrong look, and he'd be explaining himself with fists or worse. He stopped under the streetlight, pulling out his phone to reread the text, as if it'd give him a clue he'd missed. That's when he heard it, a shuffle, quick and close, from the alley across the street. He pocketed the phone, instincts kicking in, and crossed over, moving silent like he used to on the court. All focus, no noise. The alley was narrow, choked with trash bags and broken glass. At the far end, under a fire escape, a figure crouched, small, hunched, breathing hard. "Jamal!" Michael called, his voice low but firm. The figure flinched, scrambling back, and a street lamp caught his face, young, maybe 16, eyes wide with panic. Not Jamal. This kid was darker-skinned, shorter, a stranger. He clutched a backpack like it was his lifeline, his hoodie torn at the sleeve. "Who are you?" he snapped, voice cracking. "You one of them?" Michael raised his hands, palms out. "Easy, man. I'm not here to hurt you. Looking for Jamal? Kid about your age, big Bulls fan. You know him?" The boy's eyes darted past Michael, toward the street, then back. "Jamal's gone," he said, barely a whisper. "They took him 2 nights ago. Said he owed him. I saw it." Michael's gut twisted. "Who's they? What did he owe?" The kid shook his head, backing up further. "I ain't saying. You don't get it? They'll kill me too. Just go, man, before they—" He stopped, freezing as headlights swept the alley mouth. A black van screeched to a stop, doors sliding open, and 3 figures spilled out. Big, hooded, moving fast. One held a bat, another a glint of metal that wasn't a toy. "Run!" the kid yelled, bolting for the fire escape. Michael didn't hesitate. He ducked behind a dumpster, heart pounding as the men charged in. The leader, a broad-shouldered thug with a scar across his cheek, barked, "Find the little rat! He's got it!" Michael crouched low, breath steady, mind racing. Jamal was in deep, deeper than a kid should be. And now this boy was next. He didn't know what it was, but he knew trouble when it roared up in a van. The men fanned out, boots crunching glass, and Michael made a call. He wasn't running. Not yet. He slid a hand to his pocket, gripping the only weapon he had, a pocket knife from his glove box. Small, but sharp. Enough to buy time. The kid clambered up the fire escape, but a gunshot cracked the air, loud, wild, splintering brick above him. He screamed, tumbling back, and the scarred guy lunged, grabbing his leg. Michael moved then, fast and low, slamming into the thug's side like a linebacker. The guy grunted, staggering, and Michael drove a knee up, catching his chin. Scarface hit the ground, bat clattering, but the other 2 spun, weapons raised. "Who the hell's this?" one snarled, leveling a pistol. Michael stared them down, knife out, voice cold as steel. "Wrong night to find out. Let the kid go and we all walk away." The gunman laughed, a dry, ugly sound, and cocked the hammer. "Big talk, old man. You just bought a ticket to the morgue." The alley lit up with tension, a standoff teetering on blood. Michael's mind flashed, Jamal's text, the kid's fear, a past he couldn't outrun. Whatever this was, it started now, and he was all in. The alley was a pressure cooker, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder and sweat. Michael Jordan stood firm, his pocket knife gleaming under the street lamp's weak glow, facing 2 armed thugs while the scarred guy groaned on the ground, clutching his jaw. The kid, still tangled in the fire escape's rungs, stared wide-eyed, his breath hitching as the pistol leveled at Michael's chest. The gunman, a wiry figure with a shaved head and a teardrop tattoo under his eye, smirked, his finger twitching on the trigger. "Last chance, Grandpa," he said, voice low and mean. "Drop the blade or we paint this alley with you." Michael didn't blink. 30 years ago, he'd stared down bigger threats, 7-foot centers, hostile crowds, the weight of a franchise. This wasn't a court, but the rules were the same. Stay cool, read the play, find the angle. He tightened his grip on the knife, calculating. 10 feet between him and the gun, 5 to the bat guy. The kid maybe a second from bolting. "You don't want this," he said, his tone steady as granite. "Let him go, and I'm gone too. No mess." The bat guy, a stocky bruiser with a buzz cut, laughed, twirling his weapon like a baton. "You hear this guy? Thinks he's in a movie." He stepped closer, too close, and Michael saw his opening. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed the knife, not at them, but straight up, the blade spinning into the dark. Both thugs flinched, eyes darting to follow it, and that split second was all he needed. Michael lunged, slamming his shoulder into the gunman's chest like a freight train. The pistol fired, wild, loud, the bullet ricocheting off brick, and they hit the ground hard, rolling in a tangle of limbs. Michael drove an elbow into the guy's ribs, heard a crack, and wrestled the gun free, hurling it into the shadows. The bat guy roared, swinging down, but Michael rolled clear, the wood splintering asphalt where his head had been. He sprang up, knees screaming but adrenaline pumping, and caught the kid's eye. "Go!" he barked. The boy didn't need telling twice. He scrambled up the fire escape, vanishing over the rooftop as the bat guy charged again. Michael ducked the swing, grabbed a trash can lid from the pile, and smashed it into the thug's face. A dull clang, a howl of pain, and the guy staggered back, nose bleeding. Scarface was up now, bat in hand, spitting curses, but Michael didn't wait. He bolted for the alley mouth, legs pumping like the old days, the SUV his finish line. He made it halfway when headlights flared again. The van, circling back, tires screeching as it cut him off. Michael skidded, ducking behind a rusted dumpster as the doors flew open, two more figures jumping out. Bigger, meaner, one cradling a shotgun. "He's here!" one yelled, and the scatter of boots closed in. Michael cursed under his breath, trapped, his knife gone, his options thin. He scanned the alley, fire escape too far, street too open, then spotted a manhole cover, half hidden under trash. Old school, risky, but it'd do. He heaved it up, the metal scraping loud, and dropped into the sewer just as a shotgun blast tore through the dumpster, pellets pinging steel. The stink hit him like a wall, rotting water, rat piss, but he splashed through crouching low, the tunnel swallowing him whole. Above, shouts echoed, boots stomping, but the manhole stayed put. They hadn't seen him go under. Not yet. Michael moved fast, the dark pressing in, his phone's flashlight cutting a thin beam through the murk. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. Jamal was gone, taken by these animals, and that kid knew something. He had to find him, figure out what they wanted, and why a ghost from his past was haunting him now. The sewer stretched on, a maze of pipes and sludge, and he pushed forward, ignoring the ache in his joints, the questions clawing at him. 10 minutes later, he surfaced 2 blocks away, hauling himself out near a vacant lot, soaked and breathing hard. The van was gone, the alley quiet, but the city pulsed with danger. He could feel it, a predator's heartbeat. He wiped his hands on his jacket, pulled the cap lower, and started walking, sticking to the shadows. 47th and Loomis wasn't random. Jamal had picked it for a reason. Michael needed answers, and he'd tear this town apart to get them. He found a payphone outside a shuttered diner, rare as hell in 2025, but Chicago's South Side clung to relics. He fished a quarter from his pocket, dialed a number he hadn't used in years, and waited as it rang. A gruff voice picked up, thick with sleep and smoke. "Yeah?" "Ray," Michael said, keeping it low. "It's me." A pause, then a cough. "Mike? Jesus, it's 2 a.m. Wait, you in town?" "South Side," Michael said. "Need a favor. Kid named Jamal. Teenager, Bulls fan. He's missing. Got a text saying he's in trouble, and I just dodged a crew with guns. You still got ears down here?" Ray Dawson, ex-cop, ex-drinker, Michael's old point guard from Laney High, grunted. "Yeah, I got ears. Southside's a mess. Gang's been hot lately. Some new player stirring the pot. Jamal, rings a bell. Street kid, runs errands for cash." "That's him," Michael said. "Find out where he's at. Who's got him? I'll owe you." "You already owe me for that 81 playoff bet," Ray muttered. But there was a rustle, him sitting up, grabbing a notepad. "Give me a day. Where you hold up?" "Not sure yet," Michael said. "I'll call tomorrow. Stay sharp, Ray." He hung up, the receiver cold against his hand. Ray was a long shot, but he knew these streets, knew the players, the corners, the whispers. Michael turned, heading for a cheap motel he'd passed on 51st, the kind that took cash and didn't ask questions. He needed a shower, a plan, and a way to shake the feeling that this wasn't just about Jamal, that something bigger, darker, was clawing its way back into his life. As he walked, a memory flickered. 1983, a summer night in Chicago, 20 years old, running with a crew he shouldn't have. A deal gone bad, a friend lost, a promise to never look back. He'd buried it deep, built a legend over the grave. But graves don't stay quiet, not in this city. And whatever Jamal had stumbled into, it was tied to that night. Michael could feel it in his bones. The motel neon buzzed ahead, a flickering vacancy sign. He stepped inside, paid the clerk in crumpled bills, and locked the door behind him. The room smelled of mildew, the bed sagged, but it'd do. He sat, staring at the wall, the kid's words looping in his head. They took him, said he owed 'em. Owed what? And why did it bring Michael here? Outside, Chicago growled, a beast waking up. Michael closed his eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. The game was on, and he was playing blind for now. The motel room was a coffin. Dim, stale, the hum of a busted AC unit rattling like a dying breath. Michael Jordan sat on the edge of the sagging bed, his soaked jacket draped over a chair, the faint stink of sewer still clinging to his boots. Dawn was creeping through the blinds, a gray smear over Chicago's south side. But sleep wasn't an option. His mind churned. Jamal's text, the kid in the alley, the van full of killers. He'd stepped into something ugly, and it wasn't letting go. He pulled out his phone, the screen cracked from the alley scuffle, and scrolled to the text again. MJ, it's Jamal. They're after me. Help. 47th and Loomis. No timestamp, no details, just a scream in the dark. He'd seen the fear in that other kid's eyes, heard the panic in his voice. They took him. 2 nights ago. 2 nights. Jamal could be anywhere, hurt, hiding, or worse. Michael rubbed his temples, the weight of it pressing down. He wasn't a cop, wasn't a hero. But he'd been a kid once, lost in this city, and someone had pulled him out. Maybe it was time to pay that forward. He stood, wincing as his knees protested, and grabbed a fresh shirt from his duffel. Black, plain, no trace of the legend he'd been. The motel clerk had barely blinked when he'd checked in, a bleary-eyed guy more interested in his cigarette than a stranger's story. Good. Michael needed to move quiet, stay off the radar. He slipped out, the morning air cold and sharp, and headed back toward 47th and Loomis. That kid, the one with the backpack, knew something. Finding him was step 1. The streets were waking up slow, delivery trucks rumbling, a few early risers shuffling to bus stops, the distant wail of a siren cutting through the haze. Michael kept his cap low, hands in his pockets, blending into the gray dawn. The alley from last night was taped off now, yellow crime scene ribbon fluttering in the wind, a bored cop leaning against a squad car chewing gum. No bodies, no blood, just shattered brick and a bullet casing glinting on the ground. They'd cleaned up fast, or maybe they hadn't cared enough to dig deeper. South Side rules. He circled the block, eyes sharp, looking for signs. A dropped clue, a witness, anything. The fire escape where the kid had climbed loomed over the alley, rusted and swaying. Michael traced its path. Up to the roof, over to the next building, a crumbling tenement with broken windows and graffiti tags screaming gang turf. If the kid had made it, he'd be close. Scared, maybe hurt, but close. He found a side door, The lock busted long ago and slipped inside. The stairwell reeked of piss and mold, the steps creaking under his weight. He climbed to the roof, pushing through a warped metal door, and stepped into the open air. The city sprawled out, towers downtown glinting in the distance, the south side a jagged scar below. He scanned the rooftop, empty beer cans, a busted chair, and there, tucked behind an AC unit, a flash of fabric. The backpack. Michael crouched, pulling it free. It was cheap, canvas, the straps frayed, a kid's bag, stuffed heavy. He unzipped it, careful, like it might bite. Inside, a crumpled bull's cap, old school, 90s red, a half-eaten candy bar, a burner phone, and a folded notebook, edges worn. He flipped it open. Pages of scribbled names, numbers, addresses, some crossed out, others circled in red. Drug drops. Debts. It wasn't clear, but one name jumped out. Rico, 47th St. Crew. Next to it, a note. Jamal, 5K owed, due 3/15. 3 days ago. His jaw tightened. Rico. The name rang a bell. Faint, buried, from that summer in '83 when he'd run with the wrong crowd. A low-life thug, small time then, but maybe bigger now. Michael pocketed the notebook, the phone too, and stood. The kid had dropped this running. Meant he was near, or he'd ditched it to lighten the load. Either way, it was a lead. A shuffle behind him. Soft. Quick. Michael spun, fists up, and saw the kid from the alley, peeking from behind a vent, his hoodie pulled tight. "You again," the boy hissed, voice shaky but defiant. "Why you following me?" Michael lowered his hands, slow, keeping his tone calm. "Not following. Looking. You said Jamal's gone. Tell me where and I'm out of your hair." The kid, dark eyes, skinny frame, maybe 16, stepped out, clutching a brick like a weapon. "You ain't a cop? You ain't one of them. Who are you, man?" "Someone who cares," Michael said, meeting his gaze. "Jamal's a friend. I'm not leaving till I find him. You can help, or you can run again. Your call." The kid hesitated, brick trembling in his hand. "They'll kill me," he whispered. "Rico's crew, they don't play. Jamal was running for him, small stuff, but he messed up. Took something he shouldn't." "Took what?" Michael pressed, stepping closer. The kid shook his head, wild. "I don't know. Some bag, money, maybe drugs. He was scared, said he'd fix it, but they grabbed him at the old warehouse on 51st. That's all I got, swear." Michael nodded, filing it away. 51st Street. Industrial zone, abandoned spots, perfect for a crew like Rico's. "You got a name?" he asked. "Dion," the kid muttered, dropping the brick. "Don't tell him I talked, man. I'm dead if you do." "Won't," Michael said. "Get out of here, Dion. Lay low. Somewhere they won't look." Dion bolted, disappearing down the stairwell, leaving Michael alone with the backpack and a ticking clock. He checked the burner phone. Dead battery, but maybe Ray could crack it. He headed back to the SUV, the notebook burning a hole in his pocket. Rico. 51st. $5,000. Pieces of a puzzle, but the picture was still blurry and dangerous. He drove to a diner on 63rd, a greasy spoon where the coffee was strong and the booths were private. Ray was waiting, slouched in the back, a plate of bacon untouched. His hair was grayer than Michael remembered, his face lined, but those eyes, cop eyes, still cut through bullshit. "You look like hell," Ray said, sliding a mug over. "What's the word?" Michael sat, pulling out the notebook. "Jamal's with a crew. Rico's, 47th Street. Kid named Dion saw him take him, 51st Warehouse. Found this. Looks like a ledger. Ring any bells?" Ray flipped through it, frowning. "Rico Morales. Yeah, he's a player now. Climbed the ladder since the '80s. Runs a tight outfit. Drugs, extortion, couple murders pinned but never stuck. 47th Street crew's his muscle. If Jamal's tangled with him, it's bad, Mike. How bad? Michael asked, sipping the coffee. Bitter, hot. Dead or worse bad, Ray said, blunt. Rico don't forgive debts. You sure you want to dig into this? Michael leaned back, the diner's hum fading. No choice. Kid reached out. I'm in it now. Ray sighed, tapping the table. All right, I'll shake some trees, see what falls. 51st's a war zone. Warehouses, chop shops, Rico's playground. You going there? Yeah, Michael said, standing. Tonight. Get that phone working. Might be more in it. Ray nodded, grim. Watch your back, MJ. This ain't a game you can win with a jumper. Michael smirked, faint. Never was. He left a 20 on the table and walked out, the city's growl louder now. 51st Street was calling, and whatever waited there, he'd face it head on. The Chicago sky bruised purple as dusk settled over the south side, the air heavy with the promise of rain. Michael Jordan steered his SUV down 51st Street, the industrial sprawl stretching out like a graveyard of steel and concrete. Warehouses loomed, hulking shells of a city that used to build things, now home to rats, junkies, and worse. He'd swapped the knit cap for a dark hoodie, the leather jacket traded for a beat-up windbreaker from the motel's lost and found. No point in standing out. Not here. He parked a block away, near a burned-out gas station, and killed the lights. The warehouse Dion had pointed to sat at the end of a dead-end lot, its windows blacked out, a chain-link fence sagging around it like a drunk's grin. A single floodlight buzzed over the loading dock, casting shadows that moved. Guards, maybe, or just the wind playing tricks. Michael checked his gear. The notebook, the dead burner phone, a flashlight, and a tire iron he'd pulled from the trunk. Not much, but enough to crack a skull if it came to that. He slipped out, moving low across the lot, the tire iron tucked against his side. The fence had a gap. Rusted wire bent back, and he squeezed through, wincing as it snagged his sleeve. Up close, the warehouse smelled of oil and decay, the faint thump of bass leaking from inside. Someone was here. He edged along the wall, sticking to the dark, until he found a side door, metal, dented, the lock busted. South Side maintenance at its finest. Inside the air was thick, mold, sweat, and something sharper like chemicals cooking. The space was cavernous, a maze of crates and rusted machinery, lit by a few hanging bulbs swaying in the draft. Voices echoed, low, clipped, coming from deeper in. Michael crept forward, ducking behind a stack of pallets, his boots silent on the concrete. He peered through a gap, and his breath caught. 3 guys stood around a folding table, counting cash. Stacks of it, dirty 20s and 50s, next to bags of white powder that weren't sugar. One was the scarred thug from the alley, his jaw swollen, a pistol tucked in his waistband. Another, tall, bald, tattoos snaking up his neck, sorted the bills with a cigarette dangling from his lips. The third was smaller, twitchy, pacing with a phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, Rico, we got it," he said, voice nasal. "Kid's in the back, still kicking, but he ain't talking." Michael's pulse kicked up. Jamal, alive for now. He scanned the room. 2 exits, one behind the table, another to the left, past a pile of tires. No sign of the van crew, but they could be close. He needed to get to the back, wherever that was, without turning this into a shootout. He wasn't 23 anymore. Speed was gone, but smarts weren't. He waited, watching as Twitchy hung up, muttering, "Boss says move him tonight, somewhere off-grid." Scarface grunted, shoving cash into a duffel. "Good. Little punk's more trouble than he's worth." Baldy smirked, exhaling smoke. "Should have capped him when we caught him. Rico's soft on this one." Michael's jaw tightened. Rico again, calling shots. He remembered a younger Rico. Lean, mean, a street hustler who'd run with the same crew Michael had brushed up against in '83. Back then, Rico was muscle, not brains. A kid with a chip on his shoulder and a knife in his pocket. If he was boss now, he'd climbed over bodies to get there. And if Jamal was his problem, it wasn't just about $5,000. There was more. Something in that bag Dion mentioned. The trio split, Twitchy heading for the left exit, Baldy and Scarface hauling the cash towards the back. Michael moved, shadowing Twitchy, keeping low behind crates. The guy stopped at a steel door, punched a code into a keypad, 7391, and slipped through. Michael memorized it, waiting till the door clicked shut, then darted over. He punched the numbers, praying it wasn't a one-shot deal. The lock buzzed green, and he eased inside. The hallway was narrow, damp, lined with rusted pipes dripping into puddles. A faint moan came from ahead. Pain, fear, alive. Michael followed it, tire iron ready, until the hall opened into a smaller room, a storage closet turned cell. Jamal was there, slumped against the wall, hands zip-tied, face bruised and bloody. His Bulls jersey hung in tatters, but those eyes, big, hopeful, lit up when they saw Michael. "Mr. J?" he croaked, voice weak. You came?" Michael dropped to a knee, checking him over. Cuts, a busted lip, maybe a cracked rib. "Yeah, kid," he said, soft but firm. "Told you I'd look out for you. Can you walk?" Jamal nodded, wincing. "Think so. They got my bag, said I stole it, but I didn't. I swear." "Later," Michael said, slicing the zip ties with the tire iron's edge. "We're moving. Now." He helped Jamal up, the kid leaning hard on his shoulder, every step a grunt. They made it halfway down the hall when boots thudded behind them. Scarface, pistol out, eyes blazing. "You!" he roared, recognizing Michael from the alley. "Should have finished you!" Michael shoved Jamal behind a pipe, spinning to face him. "Your mistake," he said, voice ice. Scarface fired, fast, sloppy, and Michael dove, the shot pinging off metal. He swung the tire iron, catching the guy's wrist, and the gun clattered free. Scarface lunged, fists flying, but Michael was ready, ducked a punch, drove a knee into his gut, then slammed the iron down on his skull. The thug crumpled, out cold, blood pooling. Jamal stared, shaking. You're crazy, Mr. J. "Been called worse," Michael said, grabbing the pistol, a Glock, loaded. He didn't like guns, never had, but tonight wasn't about liking. "Stay close." They hit the main floor, the cash table empty now, voices shouting from the loading dock, Baldy and Twitchy, alerted by the shot. Michael dragged Jamal toward the tire pile, ducking low as headlights flared outside. The van was back, doors slamming, more boots hitting pavement. They were surrounded, pinned, and Jamal's breathing was ragged, too slow, too hurt. Michael gripped the Glock, mind racing. He'd gotten Jamal this far, but out was a long shot. Unless he played it smart, not hard. He spotted a fuse box on the wall, rusted but live, and made a call. "Hang on, kid," he whispered, then sprinted, firing twice at the box. Sparks flew, lights died, and the warehouse plunged into black. Chaos erupted, shouts, crashes, blind shots ripping the dark. Michael hauled Jamal up, weaving through the maze, the kid's weight dragging him down. They hit the side door, bursting into the lot as rain broke loose, cold and heavy. The fence loomed ahead, freedom on the other side, if they could make it. Behind them, a voice cut through the storm. Deep, familiar, chilling. "Jordan, you can't run from this." Rico, older, meaner, alive. Michael froze, just for a second, the past slamming into him like a fist. Then he ran, Jamal in tow, knowing whatever he'd buried in '83 was out of the grave and coming for blood. Rain hammered the south side, turning the streets into rivers of black and silver, the kind of downpour that drowned sound and hid sins. Michael Jordan half-carried, half-dragged Jamal through the gap in the warehouse fence, the kid's legs buckling with every step. The Glock was cold against his waistband, the tire iron lost somewhere in the dark. Behind them, shouts faded into the storm. Rico's crew scrambling in the blackout Michael had triggered. But he knew it wouldn't last. They'd regroup, hunt, and Rico's voice still rang in his ears. "You can't run from this!" A threat, a promise, a ghost from 1983 clawing free. He pulled Jamal across 51st, sticking to alleys and shadows, the rain soaking them to the bone. The kid was fading, breathing shallow, face pale under the cuts and bruises. But he clung to Michael like a lifeline. They stumbled into a vacant lot, a jungle of weeds and broken concrete, and Michael spotted shelter, a rusted delivery truck, its back door ajar. He hauled Jamal inside, slamming the door shut, the metal groaning as water streamed down its sides. The air was stale, thick with mildew, but it was dry, hidden. A moment to breathe. Jamal slumped against the wall, shivering, his torn Bulls jersey plastered to his skinny frame. Michael knelt, peeling off his windbreaker and draping it over the kid's shoulders. "Stay with me, Jamal," he said, voice low but steady. "You're out. We're safe. For now. Talk to me. What happened?" Jamal's eyes fluttered, focusing slow. "Mr. J, you really came," he rasped, a faint smile cracking his busted lip. "Thought I dreamed that text. Thought I was done." "You're not done," Michael said, firm. "Not while I'm here. Who's Rico? What's this bag they're after?" Jamal coughed, wincing, and wiped rain from his face. "Rico. He runs everything down here. Drugs, guns, you name it. I was just running errands, you know? Small stuff. Drop this, pick up that. Needed cash, mom's sick, rent's late. Didn't ask questions till it got heavy." "Heavy how?" Michael pressed, sitting back on his heels, the truck's floor cold under him. Jamal swallowed, eyes darting like he still heard boots coming. "Last week Rico gave me a bag. Said deliver it to some guy on 47th. Looked like cash, but heavier, weird. I got curious, peeked inside. Wasn't just money, Mr. J. Had a gun, old, rusted, and a picture. Some dude from way back, dead on the ground. Freaked me out. I bolted, hid it. Figured I'd ditch 'em. But they found me. Said I stole it. Owed 'em $5,000 to square up." Michael's gut twisted, a cold thread snaking through him. A gun. A picture. 1983 flashed. Hot summer night. A deal gone south. A kid named Tony bleeding out in an alley. Rico's laugh in the dark. Michael had been there, 20, dumb, tagging along with a crew for kicks, thinking he was untouchable. Tony had crossed them, skimmed cash, and paid for it. Michael hadn't pulled the trigger. Rico had. But he'd run, left Tony's body behind, swore he'd never speak of it. Built a life over that grave. But graves talk in Chicago. "That picture," Michael said, voice tight. "What did the guy look like?" Jamal frowned, shaky. "Couldn't tell. Face all messed up, blood everywhere. Wore a jacket, blue, had a patch. Hawks or something?" "Why?" Michael's breath caught. Tony'd worn a Blackhawks jacket. Cheap, ripped, his pride. The gun, Rico's piece, a snub-nosed .38, had vanished that night. If Jamal had stumbled onto it, Rico wasn't just chasing a debt. He was burying evidence, and Michael with it. "Where's the bag now?" he asked. "Stashed it," Jamal said. "Old playground on 49th, under the slide, in a box. Didn't want it near me." Michael nodded, mind racing. 49th wasn't far. 2 blocks, maybe 3. But Rico's crew was out there, and Jamal was a wreck. He couldn't leave the kid, couldn't risk the bag falling back into Rico's hands. "Rest up," he said, squeezing Jamal's shoulder. "We'll move when you're steady. They don't get you. Not tonight." Jamal managed a nod, leaning back, eyes drifting shut. Michael sat, rain drumming the truck, and pulled the burner phone from his pocket. Still dead, but it nagged at him. Maybe more than a brick in there. He tucked it away, staring at the wall, Tony's face flickering in his head. Young, scared, gone. He'd run from that night, told himself it was Rico's sin, not his. But he'd been there, silent, complicit. Jamal's mess was pulling it all back, and Michael wasn't sure he could outrun it this time. His phone buzzed. Real one, not the burner. "Ray," he answered, keeping it low. "Yeah?" "Mike," Ray's voice crackled, urgent. "Got something. Jamal's been on Rico's radar. Kid was moving product, but he's small fry. Word is, Rico's spooked. Some old beef's hot again, tied to a hit from way back. You know anything about that?" Michael's throat went dry. "Maybe. What else?" 51st warehouse is buzzing. Cops got a call, shots fired, but they're slow rolling it. Rico's crew's tearing up the streets, looking for 2 runners. That you?" "Yeah," Michael said. "Got Jamal. He's hurt, but alive. Rico's after a bag, cash, a gun, a photo. Thinks Jamal stole it." Ray cursed. "A gun? Shit, Mike, that's heavy. Rico's got pull. Cops won't touch him unless it's airtight. You got the bag?" "Not yet," Michael said. "Stashed on 49th. I'm going for it." "Don't," Ray snapped. "You're in over your head. Rico's not just some punk, he's connected deep. Let me call in favors, get back up." "No," Michael cut in. "This is mine, Ray. I started it. I finish it. Just charge that phone, dig into Rico. I'll call when I've got the bag." Ray sighed, long and hard. Stubborn as ever. "All right, MJ, don't die out there. Chicago's got enough ghosts." Michael hung up, the rain a steady roar. Jamal stirred, mumbling. "You okay, Mr. J?" "Yeah, kid," Michael lied, standing. "Just thinking. We move soon. Get that bag, get you safe." Jamal nodded, trusting, and Michael felt the weight. Tony's death, Jamal's life, Rico's shadow. He'd buried 83, but it was alive now, breathing down his neck. The bag was the key. Proof, leverage, maybe a way out. He'd get it, or die trying. The storm raged on, and so did he. The rain had softened to a drizzle by the time Michael Jordan eased Jamal out of the delivery truck. The south side street slick and gleaming under the sodium glow of streetlights. The kid was steadier now, his breathing less ragged, but he still leaned on Michael's arm, every step a wince. The windbreaker hung loose on his shoulders, and his busted Bulls jersey peeked out. A reminder of why Michael was here, knee-deep in a past he couldn't shake. The playground on 49th was their target. 2 blocks north, a straight shot if the streets stayed quiet. They wouldn't. Michael kept the Glock tucked in his waistband, its weight a cold comfort he didn't want to need. The tire iron was gone, but he'd grabbed a jagged brick from the lot. Crude, heavy, better than nothing. "Stay tight," he muttered to Jamal, scanning the shadows. "We get the bag, we're out. No stops." Jamal nodded, teeth chattering. "It's under the slide. Blue box, taped shut. I hit it good." "Good," Michael said, guiding him along the alley's edge. "Keep your head down. They're still out there." The city growled low. Distant sirens, a car alarm wailing blocks away, the hum of trouble that never slept. 49th Street opened up ahead, a stretch of crumbling row houses and vacant lots, the playground a dark patch at the far end. It was a relic, rusted swings creaking in the breeze, a slide dented and peeling, the kind of place kids didn't play anymore. Michael remembered it from his early Chicago days. Pickup games, laughter, before the gangs took root. Now it was a ghost town, and he was walking into it blind. They crossed the street, sticking to the curb, Michael's eyes darting. Windows, rooftops, any glint of movement. Halfway there, headlights flared. A pickup truck, slow rolling from a side street, its engine a guttural rumble. Michael yanked Jamal behind a dumpster, crouching low as it passed. 2 figures inside, faces shadowed. Rico's crew? Cops? Didn't matter. They kept moving once it turned the corner, the playground looming closer. The slide was a hulking silhouette, its base sunken into muddy gravel. Michael knelt, Jamal hovering behind, and felt under it. Wet dirt, broken glass, then the edge of something hard. The blue box, plastic, scuffed, duct tape peeling at the seams. He pulled it free, brushing off the muck, and cracked it open. Inside, a wad of cash, maybe 10 grand, a rusted snub nose, 38, Tony's killer, and a Polaroid, faded but clear. Tony, sprawled in an alley, blood pooling, that Blackhawks jacket torn. Michael's stomach lurched, proof of a night he'd run from, now staring back. "Jamal," he said, voice tight, tucking the bag under his arm. "This why they're after you?" Jamal peeked over, eyes wide. I didn't know what it was till too late. Thought it was just cash. Rico freaked when I didn't deliver. Said it was personal." Michael nodded, grim. Personal. Rico had kept this. Trophy, leverage, a noose for anyone who'd been there. Michael included. "We're done here," he said, standing. "Let's—" A screech cut him off. Tires, close, too close. The black van from 51st roared up, skidding across the playground's edge, gravel spraying. Doors flew open, 4 figures spilling out. Baldy, twitchy, 2 new heavies, all armed, all pissed. Michael shoved Jamal behind the slide, dropping low as a shotgun blast shredded the air, buckshot tearing into the metal above them. "Jordan," Baldy bellowed, racking the shotgun. "We know it's you. Give up the kid in the bag, or we dig 2 holes." Michael gripped the Glock, peeking out. 10 yards. Too far to rush. Too close to hide. Jamal whimpered, curling tight, and Michael's mind raced. 4 guns, one of him. No cover but a rusted slide. He'd faced long odds before. But this wasn't a court, wasn't a game. "Stay down," he whispered to Jamal, then shouted back, "You want it? Come get it!" Twitchy laughed, shrill and fired. Pistol rounds pinging off the slide, sparks flying. Michael rolled left, popping up to snap off 2 shots, wild, aimed high, enough to scatter them. Baldy ducked, cursing, and the heavies fanned out, flanking wide. Michael grabbed Jamal, hauling him toward the swings, a thin chance at distance. They made it 5 steps before a heavy lunged from the dark, a pipe swinging for Michael's head. He ducked, the pipe grazing his shoulder, and drove the brick into the guy's gut, hard, desperate. The heavy doubled over, gasping, and Michael kicked him down, snatching the pipe. Jamal stumbled, falling, and Twitchy closed in, pistol raised. Michael swung the pipe, cracking Twitchy's arm, a sick snap, a scream, and the gun hit the gravel. But Baldy was on him now, shotgun blasting, and Michael dove, dragging Jamal into the mud as pellets ripped the swings apart. "Enough!" a voice boomed, deep, commanding, cutting through the chaos. Rico Morales stepped from the van, rain glistening on his leather coat, a .45 in his hand, eyes locked on Michael. He was older, gray at the temples, lines carved deep, but the same Rico from '83, cold, cruel, a predator in human skin. "Well, well," he drawled, stepping over Twitchy's writhing form. "Michael Jordan, big man, big hero. Thought you'd stay gone." Michael stood, slow, pipe in one hand, Glock in the other, Jamal behind him. Thought you'd rot in a cell by now, Rico. Guess we're both wrong. Rico smirked, rain dripping from his brow. Funny guy, you know why I kept that bag? Insurance? Your name's on that night too, MJ. Tony's blood's on both of us. Hand it over, let the kid go, and maybe you walk. Maybe. Michael's grip tightened, Tony's face flashing, dead, abandoned, his fault as much as Rico's. You killed him, he said, voice steel. I ran. Difference is, I'm done running. Rico's smirk faded, eyes narrowing. Then you're done, period. He raised the .45, and the heavies closed in, guns up. Michael braced. Outnumbered. Outgunned. The bag a death sentence either way. But he'd made a promise to Jamal, to himself. If this was the last shot, he'd take it swinging. A siren wailed. Sudden, close, red and blue flashing through the rain. Rico flinched, head snapping toward 49th. Cops, Baldy snarled, shotgun lowering. We're burned. Move, Rico barked, backing toward the van, on descent to 45, still on Michael. This ain't over, Jordan. That bag's mine, or you're a dead man. The crew piled in, tires spinning mud as the van peeled out, vanishing into the storm. Michael exhaled, chest heaving, and pulled Jamal up. You good? He asked, voice rough. Jamal nodded, trembling. Yeah. Thanks, Mr. J. Michael tucked the bag tighter, the Glock still warm in his hand. Cop lights danced closer, Ray's favors maybe, but he wasn't waiting to find out. Come on, he said, leading Jamal into the dark. We've got breathing room, not much, but enough. The rain fell harder, washing blood and fear into the gutter. Rico was out there, the bag a ticking bomb, and 1983 was alive again. Ugly, raw, unforgiving. Michael didn't know the endgame yet, but he knew one thing. He'd fight till the buzzer. The rain had slowed to a whisper by the time Michael Jordan and Jamal slipped into a shuttered barbershop on 53rd Street, a block from the chaos of the playground. The door's lock was a joke, rusted, giving way with a shove, and the place smelled of old pomade and dust, its chairs draped in cracked vinyl, a faded closed sign swinging in the window. Michael barred the door with a broomstick, the Glock still in his hand, the blue box tucked under his arm. Jamal collapsed into a chair, clutching his side, his face a map of pain and exhaustion. Michael checked the windows, boarded tight, no gaps, then crouched beside the kid, pulling the windbreaker tighter around him. Hold on, Jamal, he said, voice steady but soft. You're safe here. Catch your breath. We've got time to figure this out. Jamal nodded, eyes glassy but trusting. You got the bag? Rico's gonna kill us for that, Mr. J. He don't let go. He won't, Michael said, setting the box on a counter littered with ancient combs. But neither do I. Tell me everything, start to finish. How'd you get mixed up with him? Jamal swallowed, wincing as he shifted. Wasn't supposed to be big. Mom's got cancer. Chemo's eating us alive. Landlord's on our ass. Rico's guys hang around the block. Offered me cash to run stuff. Said it was easy. Drop a package, get $100. Did it a few times. Kept my head down. Then he gave me that bag. Said it was special, no peeking. I got scared, looked anyway. When I saw the gun, the picture, I knew it was bad. Hid it, ran, texted you. Michael's jaw tightened, guilt gnawing at him. A kid, barely 16, caught in a grinder because he'd cared enough to reach out. You did right, he said. Stupid, but right. That bag's a bomb. Rico's holding it over me. Over you. We've got to turn it back on him. How? Jamal asked, voice small. He's got a whole crew. Guns, everything. We're just us. Michael stood, pacing the dim room, the floor creaking under his boots. Us is enough, if we're smart. Rico's not invincible. He's scared, sloppy. That bag's his weakness, proof he killed a man. We use it, we hit him where it hurts. He opened the box, pulling out the contents. Cash, the .38, the Polaroid. The photo trembled in his hand, Tony's lifeless eyes staring up, that Blackhawks patch a punch to the gut. 1983 roared back. Humid night, alley off Kedzie, Rico grinning as he pulled the trigger, Michael frozen, 20 and spineless. Tony'd been their friend, loud, loyal, dumb enough to skim from the crew. Michael had watched him die, run home, told himself it wasn't his fight. Next day, he'd quit the streets, buried it under basketball, fame, a life Rico never touched. Until now. This, Michael said, holding the photo, is Rico's noose. He kept it, maybe to brag, maybe to blackmail me if I ever crossed him. Cops won't care about a cold case unless we make 'em. We need leverage, someone he trusts, someone who'll flip. Jamal frowned, shaky. Like who? His guys'd die for him. Not all, Michael said, thinking fast. That twitchy one, skinny, jumpy, he's weak. Panicked when I broke his arm. If we get to him, squeeze him, he might talk. Jamal's eyes widened. You gonna hurt him? No, Michael said, firm. Not unless I have to. Fear's enough. Fear and a deal. But first, we need a base. Somewhere Rico can't sniff us out. And we need Ray. He pulled his phone, dialed Ray again, the line crackling as it connected. Mike, Ray answered, voice tight. Tell me you're alive. Barely, Michael said. Got Jamal, got the bag, cash, gun, photo of Tony. Rico's crew jumped us, but we slipped him. Cops spooked him off. You're doing? Yeah, Ray said. Called a buddy on the force. Anonymous tip, shots fired. Bought you time? Not much. Rico's raging. Word's out he wants you bad. Where you at? 53rd, Michael said. Old barbershop boarded up. We're laying low. That phone charged? Working on it, Ray said. Battery's shot. Got a guy pulling data. Might take a day. What's the photo? Tony, Michael said, low. 83, Kedzie Alley. Rico's bullet, my silence. It's all there. Ray went quiet, then whistled. Jesus, Mike, you were there? Why'd he keep it? Control, Michael said. Kept me in line all these years. Knew I'd never talk. Now it's my turn. Find Twitchy. Skinny guy, Rico's runner, broken arm from tonight. He's the weak link. Track him, tell me where. On it, Ray said. But Rico's got eyes. Gangs, dirty cops. You move, they'll know. Sit tight, I'll call when I've got him. Thanks, Ray, Michael said, hanging up. He turned to Jamal, who'd pulled his knees up, staring at the floor. You hear that? We've got to play. Twitchy's our in. Rest now. We move when Ray calls. Jamal nodded, then hesitated. Mr. J? Why you doing this? I'm nobody, just some kid. You could walk away. Michael sat across from him, the chair groaning. You're not nobody. You're the kid who wore my jersey, who asked for a ball like it was gold. I walked away once. Let a friend die, let Rico win. Not again. We're in this till it's done. Jamal's lip trembled, but he smiled. Small, real. You're still the goat, man, even out here. Michael chuckled, faint. Goat's retired. This is just Mike, trying to fix what I broke. They sat in silence, the drizzle tapping the roof, the city a low growl outside. Michael held the Polaroid, Tony's face a weight he couldn't shake. 1983 wasn't just a memory. It was a debt, and Rico was the collector. The bag was power, proof to bury him or bait to draw him out. Michael didn't know which yet, but he'd play it hard, smart, like every game he'd ever won. His phone buzzed. Text from Ray. Twitchy spotted, ER, Mercy Hospital, broken arm, alone, move fast. Michael stood, pocketing the photo, the gun, the plan clicking into place. Jamal, he said sharp. We're up. Time to turn the tables. The kid rose, shaky but game, and they slipped into the night. Hunters now, not prey. Rico wanted a fight. He'd get one. The streets of Chicago's South Side glistened under a fresh sheen of rain as Michael Jordan guided Jamal toward Mercy Hospital, a squat brick building hunched on the edge of 55th Street. The neon emergency sign buzzed red, casting a bloody glow over the parking lot, where ambulances idled and tired nurses smoked under awnings. Michael kept his hoodie up, the Glock tucked deep in his waistband, the blue box, Tony's ghost, slung under his arm in a scavenged grocery bag. Jamal limped beside him, his face pale but set, the kid's grit shining through the bruises. "Stay close," Michael muttered, scanning the lot. "Twitchy's our shot, scared, hurt, alone. We get him talking, we get Rico." Jamal nodded, clutching the windbreaker. "What if he don't talk, Mr. J? He's one of 'em." "He'll talk," Michael said, voice steel. "Fear's a hell of a motivator. Learned that on the court. Just follow my lead." They slipped through the ER's sliding doors, the air hitting them with antiseptic sting and the low hum of chaos. Beeping monitors, a drunk yelling in a corner, a kid crying over a busted arm. Michael clocked the room. 2 cops by the desk, chatting lazy, a nurse too buried in charts to notice. Twitchy wouldn't be hard to spot. Skinny, jumpy, fresh cast from the playground fight. Michael steered Jamal to a row of plastic chairs near the triage desk, keeping his head low. "Sit," he said. "Look sick. Keep him off us." Jamal slumped, faking a groan, and Michael moved, blending into the shuffle of patients and staff. He snagged a clipboard from a cart. Props mattered, and drifted toward the treatment bays, eyes sharp. Curtains hung half open, revealing glimpses. An old guy wheezing, a woman with a bloody rag on her head. Then he saw him. Twitchy. 3rd bay down, sprawled on a gurney, his right arm in a sling, eyes darting like a cornered rat. A nurse was leaving, clipboard in hand, and no guards, no crew. Perfect. Michael slipped in, letting the curtain fall behind him, the clipboard a shield. Twitchy jolted upright, his good hand scrabbling for something, nothing there. "Who the hell?" he started, then froze, recognition hitting. "You! The guy from the park, Jordan?" "Keep it down," Michael said, low and hard, dropping the clipboard on the bed. He stepped close, looming, his shadow swallowing the gurney. "Yeah, it's me. And you're in deep, twitchy, broken arm, pissed off boss, me breathing down your neck. Want to guess how this ends?" Twitchy shrank back, sweat beading on his pale forehead. I don't know nothing, man. Rico's gonna kill me already. Don't need you too." "Rico's the least of your problems," Michael said, pulling the Glock just enough to flash steel, then tucking it back. "I've got the bag, cash, gun, Tony's picture. You know what that means? Rico's done if I talk, and you're the first domino. Unless you give me something better." Twitchy's eyes widened, panic bubbling. "You don't get it. Rico's crazy about that bag. It's not just Tony. It's bigger, way bigger. He's scared, man. Scared of him." "Him who?" Michael pressed, leaning in, voice a blade. "Talk, or I walk out and drop this on Rico's doorstep, with your name on it." Twitchy licked his lips, trembling. Vince Caruso. Big shot, runs the west side, Rico's boss. That bag's got dirt. Tony's hit, yeah, but more. Vince ordered it. Rico did the dirty work, kept proof to keep Vince in line. Jamal took it, and now Vince is raging. Wants it back or Rico's dead. Me too, probably. Michael's mind spun. Vince Caruso. The name hit like a brick. Another ghost from '83. Older than Rico, smoother, a shadow player who'd pulled strings while Michael and Tony ran the streets. If Vince was in this, it wasn't just a grudge. It was a power play, and Jamal had tripped over the wire. "Where's Rico now?" he asked, keeping his tone flat. Twitchy hesitated, then caved. "Hideout, old meat plant on Halstead, near the tracks. He's moving tonight. Meeting Vince, handing over whatever he's got left. You show up, you're toast. They'll bury you both." "Maybe," Michael said, stepping back, pocketing the bag. "Or maybe I bury them. You're out of this, Twitchy. Stay quiet, stay alive. Cross me, and I'll find you." Twitchy nodded, frantic, sinking into the gurney as Michael turned, slipping out past the curtain. The ER buzzed on, oblivious, and he rejoined Jamal, who looked up, pale but alert. "He talk?" the kid asked. "Yeah," Michael said, helping him up. "Rico's got a boss, Vince Caruso. That bag's a leash, and we just yanked it. We're hitting Halstead, meat plant, tonight." Jamal's eyes widened. "Tonight? Mr. J, I'm beat. They'll kill us." "Not if we're fast," Michael said, guiding him out. "Rico's on the ropes. Vince is coming. We end this there, or we don't end it." They stepped into the drizzle, the hospital's glow fading behind. Michael's phone buzzed. Ray. "Phone's live. Texts to Jamal, threats from Rico. Vince's name popped. Big fish, mob ties. Where you at?" Michael texted back. "Halstead meat plant. Tonight. Bring heat if you can." He pocketed it, the Glock a cold weight, Tony's photo burning in his mind. 1983 wasn't just Rico. It was Vince, the puppet master, and Michael had been a pawn. Now he was a player, and the board was set. Halstead was a long shot. Rico, Vince, a crew waiting. But he'd faced longer odds, won bigger games. Jamal limped beside him, a kid caught in a war Michael had started decades ago. He'd get him out, or go down trying. The rain picked up, a low growl rolling over the city. Michael pulled his hood tighter, Jamal's trust heavy on his shoulders. The meat plant loomed in his head. Dark, bloody, the endgame. Whatever waited there, he'd meet it head on. The Chicago night pressed in. A wet shroud over the south side as Michael Jordan and Jamal ducked into a condemned auto shop on 58th Street, a stone's throw from the Halstead meat plant. The building was a skeleton. Shattered windows, oil-stained floors, a gutted car frame rusting in the corner. But it had a roof, walls, and shadows to hide them. Michael barred the door with a steel pipe, the Glock still heavy in his waistband, the blue box stashed under a tarp. Jamal sank against a wall, his breathing shallow, the windbreaker soaked through from the drizzle. "Rest here," Michael said, voice low but firm, checking the kid's pulse, weak but steady. "We've got an hour, maybe two, before Rico and Vince show. Ray's coming. Brings help, we've got a shot." Jamal nodded, clutching his ribs, his eyes flickering with fear and grit. "Mr. J, you think we can take 'em? Rico, Vince, they're big, man, bigger than us." Michael crouched, meeting his gaze. "Size don't win fights, smarts do. I've been down 20 points with 2 minutes left, kid. You don't quit. You play harder. Rico's rattled, Vince is exposed. We've got the bag, they don't. That's our edge." Jamal managed a weak smile. "Like Game 6? 98? That shot against Utah?" Michael chuckled, faint. "Something like that, except this time it's not a ball, it's a bullet. Stay sharp, Jamal. We're not done." He stood, pacing the shop, the rain a soft patter on the tin roof. The meat plant loomed in his mind, sprawling, dark, a slaughterhouse turned fortress. Rico would be there, Vince too, and a crew itching to bury them. The bag, Tony's murder, Vince's orders, Rico's proof was dynamite, but lighting the fuse meant getting close. Too close. He pulled the Polaroid from the box, Tony's dead stare cutting deeper each time. 1983 wasn't just a mistake. It was a chain, and Vince held the other end. His phone buzzed. Ray, voice rough through static. "Mike, I'm 10 out. Got a guy. Ex-SWAT, owes me. Packing heat, no questions. Twitchy's intel checks. Meat plant's hot, Rico's crew's doubling up. Vince rolled in an hour ago, black Escalade, muscle with him. You sure about this?" Sure as I'll ever be, Michael said, glancing at Jamal. Bag's the key. Proof Vince called Tony's hit. Rico's playing both sides, scared stiff. We get in, get it to you. Cops can't ignore it. Ray grunted. Cops'll drag their feet. Vince owns half the precincts. My guy's got a recorder. Wireless, clean. You get Rico or Vince talking, we've got him cold. Where you at? 58th, Michael said. Auto shop, busted up. Meet us here, back door, quiet. Copy, Ray said. Don't move till I'm there. This goes south, Mike. It's not just you, Jamal's done too. I know, Michael said, hanging up. He pocketed the phone, the weight of it all sinking in. Jamal's life, Tony's death, a city ready to swallow them. He'd faced pressure before. Playoffs, finals, the world watching, but this was raw, personal, a game with no refs. Jamal stirred, voice shaky. Mr. J, what's in that bag? Why's it so big? Rico said, personal, but you're freaking out too. Michael sat beside him, the Polaroid in his hand. It's old blood, kid. 83. I was young, stupid, running with a crew. Tony was one of us. Good guy, bad choices. Stole from them, got caught. Vince ordered it, Rico pulled the trigger. I watched, didn't stop it. Ran instead. That gun, that picture, it ties me to it. Ties Rico to Vince. They kept it to keep me quiet. Now it's loose and they're scared I'll talk. Jamal's eyes widened, processing. You saw a guy die and didn't tell? Couldn't, Michael said, voice rough. Wasn't proud. Built a life over it, thought it'd stay buried. You dug it up, Jamal. Not your fault, but here we are. I owe Tony. I owe you. This ends tonight. Jamal nodded, slow, trust-holding despite the weight. You're still my hero, man. Messed up or not. Michael smirked, faint. Heroes don't let friends die, I'm fixing that. A knock, sharp, low, came from the back door. Michael sprang up, Glock ready, and eased it open. Ray stood there, rain slicked, a duffel over his shoulder, a grizzled guy behind him. Buzz cut, scars, eyes like a hawk. Mike, Ray said, stepping in. This is Coop, ex-SWAT, clean slate. Brought toys. Coop nodded, silent, dropping the duffel. 2 pistols, a shotgun, a tiny recorder with a mic. Wire's live, he said, voice gravel. Get him talking, I'll stream it. Cops'll have to move if it's hot. Michael took a pistol, handed the Glock to Ray. Jamal stays here, too hurt. We hit the plant, get Rico or Vince on tape, get out. Bag's bait, they'll bite. Ray frowned. You're walking into a nest, MJ. Vince ain't Rico. He's cold, connected. One slip? No slips, Michael cut in, sharp. I've got the play, always have. Jamal grabbed his arm, weak but fierce. Don't die, Mr. J. You promised. Michael squeezed his hand. Not dying, kid. Winning. They geared up. Michael with the pistol and bag, Ray with the Glock, Coop with the shotgun and wire. The meat plant was a mile off, a dark beast waiting. Michael led. The rain a steady drum. Tony's ghost heavy in his pocket. 1983 had started this. Vince's order, Rico's shot, Michael's silence. Tonight, he'd break that silence, or it'd break him. The auto shop faded behind, the city a low growl. Jamal watched them go, a kid praying for a miracle. Michael didn't pray. He planned, he fought, he finished. Halstead was the court, and the clock was ticking. The Halstead meat plant loomed like a carcass against the Chicago sky, its brick walls stained black by decades of grime and neglect. Rain streaked the rusted loading docks, a faint hum of generators buzzing beneath the drizzle's hiss. Michael Jordan led Ray and Coop through the shadows, their boots crunching gravel as they approached the south entrance, a gaping maw of steel doors propped open by a crate. The pistol was steady in Michael's hand, the blue box slung under his arm, Tony's ghost a cold weight against his chest. Ray gripped the Glock. Coop cradled the shotgun, the recorder's mic taped under his collar, live and hungry for blood. "Quiet till we're in," Michael whispered, eyes scanning the dark. "Rico's jumpy, Vince is sharp. Get 'em talking, get out. No heroes." Ray nodded, grim. "You're the one playing hero, MJ. Hope that fadeaway still works." Coop smirked, racking the shotgun. "Fadeaway won't stop from 45. Let's move." They slipped inside, the air hitting them. Damp, metallic, the ghost of slaughter lingering in the concrete. The plant was a labyrinth, hulking freezers, conveyor belts rusted still, hooks swaying from the ceiling like gallows. Voices echoed ahead, sharp and angry, bouncing off the walls. Michael signaled, ducking behind a stack of crates, Ray and Coop fanning out left and right. He peered through a gap, breath steady, and saw them. Rico Morales paced a cleared space under flickering fluorescence, his leather coat slick with rain, a .45 dangling in his hand. Baldy stood by a table, shotgun propped, counting cash like it'd save him. Two heavies flanked a side door, rifles loose but ready. And there, leaning against a freezer, was Vince Caruso. Tall, lean, silver hair swept back, a tailored suit screaming power. His eyes were cold, a .357 Magnum resting on his knee, a man who'd killed before breakfast and slept fine after. "You screwed this, Rico," Vince said, voice smooth as ice, cutting through the hum. "A bag, my bag, gone, a kid loose, and now Jordan's sniffing around. I don't pay you to lose." Rico spun, face tight with panic and rage. "I had it, Vince. Jamal's a punk, nabbed it, ran. I tracked him, got him, then Jordan shows up, freaking MJ out of nowhere. He's got it now, I know it." Vince's lip curled, a predator's sneer. "Jordan. Should have known he'd crawl back. 83 was messy. Tony's mess, your mess, his mess. I told you to bury it, not frame it." Michael's gut clenched, Vince's voice, calm, cruel, the architect of that night. He nodded to Coop, who tapped the mic, recording, live. Ray shifted, Glock up, eyes on the heavies. The plan was simple. Bait them, tape them, bolt. Michael stepped out, slow, deliberate, pistol raised, the bag in plain sight. "Looking for this?" he said, voice carrying, hard as steel. Rico whirled, .45 snapping up. "Jordan, you son of a—" He froze, eyes darting to Vince, then back. Baldy grabbed the shotgun, the heavies tensed, rifles rising. Vince stood, unhurried, .357 gleaming. "Michael," he drawled, a faint smile playing. "Still got that fire. Should have stayed in the spotlight. Safer than playing hero in my town." "Your town?" Michael said, stepping closer, bag dangling. "This ain't yours, Vince. Tony's blood's in here. Your order, Rico's shot. I've got it all, gun, picture, your little trophy. Cops'll love it." Rico laughed, high, nervous. "You're bluffing, MJ. You were there, ran like a coward. You talk, you sink too." "Maybe," Michael said, eyes locked on Vince. "But I'm done running. You ordered Tony dead. Why? Skimmed a grand? Crossed you? Tell me, Vince. Make it loud." Vince's smile faded, a flicker of unease. "Tony was a liability. Talked too much, took too much. You were smart, kept quiet, built a name. This?" He nodded at the bag. "Insurance. Rico's idea. Stupid, but useful. Kept you in line." Michael's grip tightened, Tony's face flashing, dead, betrayed. "Kept me in line till now. Rico's scared. Spilled it all. You're done, Vince. Both of you." Baldy snarled, racking the shotgun. "Enough talk. Waste him." He fired, buckshot shredding crates to Michael's left. Michael dove, rolling behind a freezer, the bag skidding free. Ray popped up, Glock barking. 2 shots, one heavy dropping with a scream, clutching his leg. Coop swung the shotgun, blasting high, lights shattered, sparks raining, chaos erupting. Rico fired wild, bullets pinging steel, shouting, "Get the bag!" Vince stayed calm. 357 steady, picking shots. Methodical. Deadly. One grazed Coop's shoulder, blood blooming, but he held, pumping another round. Michael scrambled, snatching the bag, and fired back. 3 shots, tight, forcing Vince to duck. Baldy charged, shotgun roaring, and Michael lunged, slamming the pistol's butt into his temple. Baldy crumpled, out, the gun clattering. "Ray!" Michael yelled, tossing the bag. Ray caught it, ducking low as Rico closed in, 45 blazing. Michael tackled him, fists flying, old school, raw, a punch to Rico's gut, another cracking his jaw. Rico swung back, wild, catching Michael's cheek, blood hot and sharp. They grappled, rolling, the 45 skidding free, until Michael pinned him, knee on his chest, pistol at his throat. "Talk!" Michael roared, Mike live, Coop bleeding but steady. "Tony, who called it? Say it!" Rico choked, eyes wild. "Vince! Vince said kill him! Tony was stealing, talking, Vince's call!" Vince laughed, cold, unhinged, from the shadows, 357 up. "Good boy, Rico, too late though." He fired, not at Michael. Rico's chest bloomed red, a gurgle, then still. Michael rolled off, stunned, as Vince advanced, calm as death. "Loose ends," Vince said, aiming at Michael. "You're next, Jordan." A shotgun blast. Coop, staggering, pumping lead, caught Vince's arm, the 357 flying. He snarled, diving for cover, and Michael sprang, snatching the bag from Ray. "Go!" he yelled, shoving Ray towards the door. Coop fired again, covering, blood dripping as they bolted, Vince's curses echoing, the heavies scrambling. They hit the lot, rain lashing, sirens wailing. Close now. Real. Ray clutched the bag. Coop limped, shotgun low. Michael's cheek bled, his chest heaved. Rico's confession on tape. Vince wounded but alive. They'd hit hard, got proof, but the war wasn't over. "Jamal!" Michael panted, leading them back to 58th. "We get him. We finish this." The meat plant burned behind. Chaos, blood, ghosts. Michael ran, the past roaring louder than the storm. The rain had dwindled to a mist as Michael, Jordan, Ray, and Coop stumbled back into the condemned auto shop on 58th Street. The South Side's pulse a distant throb beneath the siren's wail. Michael's cheek throbbed, blood crusting from Rico's punch, his pistol still warm in his hand. Ray clutched the blue box, breathing hard, the Glock dangling loose. Coop slumped against the wall, shotgun clattering, his shoulder a mess of blood and torn fabric, but his jaw was set, tough as nails. Jamal shot up from the corner, eyes wide, his battered frame trembling as he took them in. "Mr. J," he croaked, limping forward. "You're back! You're alive! What happened?" Michael dropped to a knee, steadying him. "We got him, kid, on tape. Rico's down, Vince is bleeding. We're not clear yet, but we've got a shot." Ray tossed the bag onto a workbench, wiping sweat from his brow. "Shot's right. Damn near a massacre. Rico spilled. Vince ordered Tony's hit, loud and clear. Coop's got it wired, streaming to my guy. Cops'll have it soon, if they move." Coop grunted, peeling back his sleeve, blood dripping. "They'll move. Vince's name's too big to ignore, but he's still out there. Pissed, wounded, and he knows we've got the goods." Michael stood, handing Jamal a bottle of water from Ray's duffel. "Drink, rest. You're safe here. Rico's crew's scattered. Vince is on the run. We've got breathing room." Jamal took it, hands shaking, but his eyes locked on Michael. "Rico's dead? For real?" "Yeah," Michael said, voice low. "Vince turned on him. Cleaned house. Means he's desperate, cutting ties. That tape's gold, but it's a target too." Ray pulled the recorder from Coop, replaying it. Rico's voice crackled through. "Vince said kill him. Tony was stealing, talking, Vince's call. Then the gunshot. Rico's gurgle, chaos. Michael's gut twisted. Proof, raw and ugly, Tony's death laid bare. He'd wanted justice, but hearing it hit different. 1983 wasn't just a memory now. It was a weapon. Jesus, Ray muttered, pocketing it. That's a death sentence for Vince, if we get it out. My guy's with internal affairs, clean, hates dirty cops. He'll push it, but Vince'll pull strings, stall him. We've got to move fast. Michael nodded, pacing the shop, the Polaroid burning in his pocket. Vince won't stall. He'll hunt. Knows I've got the bag, knows I'll talk. He's cornered. Means he's dangerous. Coop coughed, wincing. Dangerous, don't cover it. Caruso's got reach, mob, cops, hitters. He'll burn this city to find us. We need a play, now. Michael stopped, staring at the rusted car frame, mind ticking like a clock. We don't run. We bait. Vince wants the bag, wants me. We give him a shot, control the ground, trap him. Ray, you're IA guy. How fast can he move? Hours, Ray said. If I push, maybe dawn. Cops'll raid if the tape's solid. But Vince'll sniff it. Hit us first. Then we pick the spot, Michael said, sharp. Somewhere open, defensible, old train yard on 63rd. Lots of cover, one way in. We leak it. Make him think I'm alone, trading the bag. He bites, we've got him on tape again, pinned till cops roll. Ray frowned, uneasy. Your bait, MJ? That's nuts. He'll bring an army. Let him, Michael said, eyes hard. I've got you, Coop. Jamal stays out. We end this my way. Smart, not scared. Jamal grabbed his arm, voice cracking. No, Mr. J, you can't. He'll kill you. I dragged you into this. Michael turned, gripping his shoulders. You didn't drag me, kid. I walked in. Tony was my mess. Rico was my shadow. You're why I'm here, why I'm finishing it. Trust me, I don't lose. Jamal's lip trembled, but he nodded, sinking back. Ray sighed, rubbing his neck. All right, MJ. Train yard it is. I'll call my guy, set the leak. Vince'll hear you're there by midnight. Coop, you good? Coop smirked, blood staining his teeth. Good enough. Shotgun's still got shells. Let's dance. Michael checked his pistol. Half a clip left. Enough. He pulled the Polaroid, Tony's face a quiet fire, and tucked it back. Ray, get Jamal somewhere safe. Your place, locked down. Coop and me, we set the yard. Vince comes, we're ready. Ray nodded, helping Jamal up. You're a stubborn bastard, Mike. Don't die, I'd hate to miss the funeral. Save the eulogy, Michael said, faint smirk. I've got one more shot. Ray and Jamal slipped out the back, the kid's eyes lingering. Hope, fear, trust. Michael and Coop geared up, the auto shop silent but for the drip of rain. The train yard was a gamble. Open, rusted, a battlefield waiting. Vince would come, wounded, raging, a king cornered. Michael didn't know if the tape would hold, if the cops would move. But he knew one thing. 1983 ended tonight, one way or another. They hit the street, Coop limping but steady, the bag a beacon in Michael's grip. The city growled, sirens fading, the meat plants echo a scar in his head. Rico's blood, Vince's cold laugh. Tony was dead, Jamal was alive, and Michael was the line between. He'd draw Vince out, break him, or go down swinging. The train yard loomed in his mind. Final court, final play. The mist thickened, Chicago a beast holding its breath. Michael walked, Coop at his side, the past a shadow stretching long. Midnight was coming, and so was Vince. The train yard on 63rd Street sprawled like a graveyard under the Chicago night, a tangle of rusted tracks, derelict cars, and skeletal cranes clawing at the mist. Midnight hung heavy, the air thick with damp and the faint tang of diesel. Michael Jordan crouched behind a boxcar, the pistol a cold weight in his hand, the blue box stashed at his feet. Tony's ghost. The key to everything. Co-op knelt nearby, shotgun braced against his good shoulder, blood crusted on his sleeve, his breath a shallow rasp. The recorder hummed live, taped to his chest, ready to catch Vince's fall. Quiet so far, Coop muttered, eyes scanning the dark. Too quiet. He's coming. Bet on it. He'll come, Michael said, voice low and hard. Wounded, mad as hell. Can't let this bag slip. We've got the high ground. Make him bleed for it. Coop nodded, grim. Your call, MJ. Just don't miss. My shoulder's bitching enough. Michael smirked, faint, checking his clip. 5 rounds left, plus the one in the chamber. The yard was their court, open enough to see, tight enough to fight. He'd leaked the meat through Ray's channels. Word that Jordan's trading the bag, alone, 63rd yard, midnight. Vince would bite. Pride and panic wouldn't let him walk away. Michael's play was simple. Draw him in, get him talking, hold till Ray's cops crashed the party. If they didn't, well, he'd cross that bridge with bullets. Headlights flared, sudden, harsh, cutting through the mist from the north entrance. 2 SUVs roared in, tires crunching gravel, doors slamming as figures spilled out. Vince, 3 heavies, no Rico, no mercy. Michael clocked them. Vince in his suit, arm bandaged but 357 gleaming. A big guy with a rifle, another with a submachine gun, the third packing a pistol and a scowl. They fanned out, slow, predatory, the SUV's lights blinding half the yard. Jordan! Vince's voice boomed, smooth and venomous, echoing off steel. I know you're here. Got my bag, got my patience on a leash. Step out, let's deal. Save us the mess. Michael stayed low, signaling Coop. Hold. He shouted back. You want it, Vince? Come closer, talk loud. I've got questions, you've got answers. Vince laughed, cold, unhinged, striding forward, 357 loose at his side. Questions? You're a dead man walking, MJ. Should have stayed a legend. Rico's worm food thanks to you. Give me the bag, or I dig it out of your corpse. Michael stood, slow, pistol up, stepping into the light. Bait. Bold, the bag dangling in his left hand. Rico talked before you plugged him. Tony's hit, your call. It's on tape, Vince. Cops have it. You're done. Why'd you kill him? Tell me. Make it good. Vince's eyes narrowed. A flicker of doubt. But he kept coming. Heavies flanking wide. Tony was a rat. Skimmed cash. Ran his mouth to the wrong ears. Had to go? Rico did it. You watched? I won. That bag's my insurance. Kept you quiet. Kept Rico loyal. Now it's a problem. Fixable, though. The mic hummed. Gold. Live. And Michael pressed. Voice steel. Fixable. You shot your own guy. Scared, Vince. Big man's crumbling. Cops'll roll you up, bag or not. Vince snarled, stopping 10 yards out. 357, snapping up. Scared? I own this city. Cops, judges, streets. You're the scared one, hiding behind a kid, digging up ghosts. Tony's dead. Rico's dead. Your turn, Jordan. The rifle guy fired. Crack. Wild. And Michael dove, bullet sparking off the boxcar. Coop swung up, shotgun roaring. Boom, boom! The submachine heavy screamed, clutching his chest, collapsing in a heap. Chaos erupted. Gunfire lit the yard, muzzle flashes cutting the mist. Michael rolled, firing twice. One grazed the pistol heavy's leg, dropping him howling. Vince ducked behind an SUV. Whoa, 357 barking, rounds pinging steel inches from Michael's head. Coop! Michael yelled, scrambling for cover. A rusted flatbed, the bag clutched tight. Keep him pinned! Coop pumped another shell, blasting low. The rifle guy ducked, cursing, but Vince kept shooting, calm, precise. A round caught Coop's thigh, blood spraying, and he grunted, sliding down, shotgun slipping. MJ, I'm hit, bad! Michael's heart slammed. Coop down, alone now. 3 guns left. He popped up, firing, 3 shots, tight. Vince ducked. The rifle guy took one in the shoulder, staggering. The bag was a beacon, a curse, and Michael made a call, tossed it hard, spinning into the open, bait in the dirt. "There!" he shouted, diving left as Vince lunged, 357 blazing. Bullets chewed the flatbed, but Michael rolled. Last 2 rounds aimed true. One clipped Vince's knee, dropping him with a roar. The bag lay between them. Tony's ghost screaming, and Michael charged, raw, desperate, tackling Vince into the gravel. They grappled, old man strength, fury. Vince's 357 skidding free, Michael's pistol empty. Fists flew. Vince caught his jaw. Michael slammed an elbow into his nose, blood hot and slick. Vince clawed for the bag. Michael pinned his arm, knee on his chest. "It's over," he roared, voice breaking the night. "Tony's done. You're done." Vince laughed, wet, bloody, grabbing a knife from his boot, slashing up. Michael twisted, the blade grazing his side, pain searing, and drove a fist down, hard, final. Vince's head cracked gravel, eyes rolling back, out cold. Sirens screamed, close, real, red and blue slashing the mist. Coop groaned, shotgun up, waving off the last heavy hobbling away. Michael staggered up, blood dripping, the bag in hand. Tony's proof, Vince's fall. Cop cars screeched in, doors slamming, shouts of "Freeze!" echoing as Michael dropped the pistol, hands high. "Ray's guy," he panted, nodding to Coop's mic. "Tape's live, Vince confessed. Tony, Rico, all of it." Cops swarmed. Vince cuffed, moaning, the heavies down or gone. Michael sank to his knees, the bag a weight he could finally shed. Coop grinned, weak, blood pooling. "Nice shot, MJ. Still got it." Michael nodded, chest heaving. Tony's ghost fading in the rain. Jamal was safe. Rico was dead. Vince was caught. But the cost was carved in blood, his and theirs. The yard went quiet. Sirens wailing away, and Michael knew. This was the last shot. Win or lose, it was done.